Hey Bombers, I'm Sierra Thompson and this is Atomic TV. Now let's head over to Deacon and Joey with sports.
What's up Bombers, it's Deacon here and I'm here to talk to you with Joey a little bit about an upcoming event that's going on for sports. This upcoming event is on November 28th. It's a boxing match, an expedition match with Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. So Mike Tyson he's getting pretty old, so he's 54 years old, and for like sports wise, that's really old. So he will be fighting against Roy Jones, and Mike Tyson's a really good boxer, and he's known kind of for like knocking everybody out pretty early in early rounds, and so he's just a really good boxer. And I personally think that Mike Tyson's gonna win, and that's just because I like him, but we'll see what Joey thinks here in a minute, and let's head over to Joey.
Hey Bombers, it's Joey, and I'm here to talk to you about the Roy Jones Jr. side of the fight. So Roy Jones Jr. is 51 years old, meaning he's only 3 years younger than Tyson. In his career, he is 66-9, with 47 of his wins being by knockout, meaning he also has knockout power like Tyson. Mike Tyson is 5'10", 240, and Roy Jones Jr. is 5'11", 200. So I personally believe Mike Tyson will win this fight purely because he overweighs Roy Jones Jr., meaning he's more than likely more powerful and stronger than Roy Jones Jr. Now back to the studio.
And here's Annabelle with some info on Suicide Prevention Month.
September is Suicide Awareness Month. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for people ages 10 through 34. Every day, approximately 123 Americans die by suicide. If you are feeling suicidal or need someone to talk to, the suicide hotline is 800-273-8255.
Now let's head over to Cassia with Dr. Vinci from Cadlick with some info on COVID.
Hi, I'm Cassia Vinci, and I'm here with my dad, Dr. Vinci, who works at Cadillac as an adult hospitalist. So, to start off with, what exactly is COVID?
Well, COVID stands for coronavirus disease 19. The reason it's called 19 is because it was first discovered in 2019. This is a novel virus from the coronavirus family, and viruses are parasites. And this virus was first discovered in Wuhan, China around November, December, and then unfortunately this virus has made its way through a lot of the world, first affecting people in China and then making its way to Europe. Unfortunately, it's a very virulent virus, which means it's a virus that enters the upper respiratory tract, typically in the nose, and then it makes its way down into the lungs, and then causes a lot of inflammation. And then in bad cases, breathing can become very problematic. You can go into respiratory failure, and then in severe situations it becomes systemic, which means it gets into the circulation and causes inflammation in the arteries, thrombosis, and then unfortunately, ultimately, death.
So, during the course of this pandemic, how has it been working at the hospitals?
It's been a drastic change in the way we practice medicine. Initially, we were very unfamiliar with how this virus transmitted. We had to start wearing protective garment to try to protect ourselves, and we call them PPI, personal protective devices, which includes facial mask, N95 mask, gowning. So every time you go into a room, you have to wear special equipment in order to not get infected and then transmit this to other parts of the hospital. And this was a drastic change on how we practice medicine. We had to isolate patients, and unfortunately these patients would get very, very sick, and unfortunately some died.
And back in March, you did contract COVID, and how was your experience with that?
Well, again, so a lot of people have different spectrums of how they present with the disease. Approximately 80% of the people have mild symptoms, which means that they don't require hospitalization. 20% do require hospitalization. And of those 20% that do require hospitalization, many of them survive. Unfortunately, there's a few percentage. Typically, the elderly, people with underlying medical conditions don't survive. Of those people who have mild symptoms, often, like in myself, had mild symptoms, fevers, myalgia, which means muscle aches, arthralgia, which means bone aches, bad headache, nausea, cause some gastrointestinal symptoms, and basically it feels like a really bad flu, and with some coughing, and typically it'll last about anywhere between 7 to 14 days, and I was fortunate that I had mild symptoms.
So, what tips and advice could you give to the people listening right now on how to keep themselves and their community safe?
Well, the tips is this is a serious and this is a real disease, something we've never seen in history. It's been proven and well known that social distancing, wearing masks, because this virus is transmitted typically through respiratory droplets. So which means if someone's talking to you very closely or coughing you, the respiratory droplets can aerosolize, get in the air, or land on surfaces, so typically for a short period of time. So if you distance yourself from other people, there's a less chance that you inhale these aerosolized droplets. And if you wear a mask, it's particularly over your nose, it avoids that you inhale this virus, because again, this virus enters the upper respiratory tract infection, typically in the nasal cavity, and then makes its way down into the lungs. Following what the local Department of Health recommends, and we've seen it in the Tri-Cities now. We had a big peak of infections. People started becoming more aggressive, wearing masks, social isolating. You see it in the stores, and we've seen that the number of cases have declined. The mortality rate has declined. Unfortunately, that's really the treatment to avoid transmitting this infectious disease.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today. Now back to the studio.
And here's Kat and Ashley with some info on the Bangkok restaurant.
Hi guys, it's Ashley and Kat.
And we're here with Sai Savanda, the owner of Bangkok Restaurant.
So Sai, how was your restaurant affected during COVID-19?
It was kind of slow, so we had to run a lot of special. Like, for example, we did we did the 20% off, and then we start out and with 20, then we did the 30%. So it's to keep us going. So we got busy during that time when we did the discount. And then it hurts is because we only do carry out. We don't have dine-in, so there's no buffet. So our main sales is buffet and lunch buffet. So, and that's it. It's kind of hard, yeah. Our revenue is down, but we managed by cutting our overhead, cost cutting, which labor costs and food costs. So we're staying afloat now. We're doing 25% dine-in and carry out, so it's picking back up. So
What are 3 dishes you recommend to new customers?
I would recommend pad thai, pad ew, and yellow curry.
Come support Bangkok Restaurant!
Have a great day. See you next time, Bombers.